Hi, and welcome to Highbrow, Lowbrow. I'm your host, Shaun. With me here is Roun Sensei. Each week we get together to discuss a well-regarded, highly acclaimed film against a cheesy blockbuster.
Basically an artsy-fartsy film versus mindless good time. So each episode we take turns in picking the genre, categories, whatnot. This time it's Shaun, but he ended up picking...
I called it post-apocalyptic. I said sci-fi post-apocalyptic, and Ron...
Dystopian, basically.
Ron felt like it was dystopian. We went back and forth on it. So you can sort of... but I think both films are good. I think both films are interesting contrasts with each other. So let's just get right to it. Ron, cheers.
Let's do it. Cheers.
First up is Stalker. Stalker is a 1979 Andrei Tarkovsky film that features a guide who leads two men through an area known as the Zone to find a room that grants wishes. So, Ron, what did you think of this highbrow, post-apocalyptic, dystopian foreign film?
Yeah, well, you know a film where absolutely nothing happens? This is that film. I don't mind highbrow films, but this is kind of like one of those super indulgent type. And then the train fucking scene, remember that?
Yeah.
How long was that? I went there, I scratched my balls, I made dinner, I came back, they were still on the fucking train, they're just waiting there.
The thing about this film is that it takes an inordinate amount of time with each shot. Granted, I think there is some liberty there because the shots are so well constructed, and I would even argue that the length of it helps the beauty of it. Like, I'm not saying it's perfectly admissible, but I will say that it's hypnotizing. It draws you in. I mean, but then you've been drawn in, but then but at the end of it, you might be drawn back out because it takes a long time.
It's kind of like one of those, like, you remember the movies, the Italian kind of realism when they were depicting a lot, like when Hollywood was, super gorgeous and blockbustery. Meanwhile, in Italy, they're depicting films in super realism. So they have a lot of long shots in order for you to kind of feel what they're feeling. And in order for you to determine what they're thinking, because obviously a drawn out shot, it can't convey much. But then at some point it's just three guys and then they're just talking and they're like, I'm gonna throw this rock over there. I mean, you go over there. Nothing really happens. They kind of set it up, right? They will set up things like, if you do this, this will happen. If you did that, the zone, the fucking zone will get you and it will change on you. And continuously, the characters always break it. Either they go back, or they break the rules that the stalker imposes. But there are no consequences to anything. Yeah. And then they have these meta exposition of things. Like they will look into the camera and then they all have their philosophical whatever that's happening there. It's like a concert. It's like a fucking medley. One of them will have a solo. This guy will have a solo. This guy will have a solo. Everybody gets a solo, and each exposition was like super long. Anyway. It's super drawn out. It's like an opera without watching an opera. You know how an opera, each scene takes too long. Like this is like an opera without singing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's entirely intentional, and it's entirely a part of how you're supposed to consume the film. You're supposed to be taken out of your daily way you consume media, and are supposed to be drawn into each image and contemplate and wonder about how each scene plays out and how each thing is like constructed, and I think it helps to create really hypnotic images that sort of stay in your mind. But I do sort of agree with Ron. Maybe I'm too pedestrian a little bit, but it is really hard to try and identify the rewards. I guess I'm like looking for rewards a little bit, like. In terms of like he was talking about how nothing ever happens, I think Andrei Tarkovsky would laugh at your idea at like nothing ever happens. Like, oh, you want to be appealed to, like some commoner person, you know? Like, I think that's sort of the mentality is like, stop being so obsessed with X and Z, X and Z, X and Z. But on another level, it's like in this contemplative, meditative exposition dialogue thing. I don't know, you know, I feel like there has to be more investment in that, and I felt like it was, I don't know if I want to say preachy, but just it feels, it does feel indulgent. I think if there was a different sentiment behind it or some other examination, but I feel like it's a constant examination, and there's not necessarily the emotion to back up that examination. I mean, I think the characters portray some emotion, like a good depth of emotion, but you don't feel necessarily connected to what they're seeking. They're just pondering. But the consequences or the actions or the heftiness of those thoughts isn't correlated to any specific traumas or events or anything.
And then the preachy part of it, they don't even back it up. I don't know. I've seen this. I'm not an expert in Russian films. Maybe it's the Soviet days, whatever. But there's always a super declaration, and which is immediately followed by non-action. Like, they will declare that society or life is like this, and then immediately they're gonna like backtrack and say, oh well, but you know, shit happens in life, and what do I know? Yeah. Like they do that constantly. Whatever the character, it's almost like at the end of it, the characters are indistinguishable from each other.
I don't know. I would consider the film ballsy in the sense that
it's not ballsy.
Yeah, I would totally say it's ballsy because they stick on a scene, and they just, I think, you know, you go to that point, you're in that scene, and your mind starts to wander. They're trying to get your mind to wander, which I don't know if that's actually good or not, but it's good that a filmmaker takes it that far to see how far things can be taken. But
you know, the most interesting part of the movie is the end, where you see, like, all throughout the movie, they're talking about the Stalker's daughter, who's a mutant, and I was like, shit, come to the USA, you know, we'll get you Charles Xavier, and you'll be accepted to the school. You're not going to be a freak, you know, you're going to have groupies and shit. Anyway, so she's a mutant because she didn't have legs, because apparently the zone, whatever, right?
Alters.
They think it's a meteorite, but, you know, there's like an underlying thing that it might have been a nuke, so whatever. But at the end of the story, she's at the table. She's looking at some glasses and jars, and this bitch starts moving them. Mm-hmm. Just moving them around. I'm like, there you go. That should have been the beginning of the goddamn movie. Shipping her to the USA to get some freedom. Because in the Soviet Union, apparently you can't get anything there. You're just a mutant. And the husband, the stalker guy, he's got more of a career than her. I mean, look, man, I don't know.
I mean,
she was the most interesting part of the movie.
It's worth a watch if you're really into artsy films, but if you are not, I would not really recommend it unless you're a very methodical person. But that said, I did get some enjoyment out of the film. I might try to watch it again just to see if I can get more out of it, but I would not recommend it to most people.
Amen.
All right. So, Ron, what film did you...
And the picking?
Yeah.
Okay, so looking at the lists online, top 50, top 25, top 10, I even saw Stalker there. There was no mention of this film at all. I was like, that is fucking stupid. Like, I was looking at online reviews, even on YouTube, what the fuck, like dystopian films. No mention of Battle Royale. The Japanese film, the original Hunger Games. Hunger Games is even on the list. Top 10, top 25, top 50, are you kidding me? So anyway, I picked for this section is Battle Royale. Battle Royale, or Battle Royale, is a 2000 Japanese dystopian action film directed by Kinji Fukasaku, based on the novel by Koushun Takami. It follows a group of junior high students that are forced to fight to the death by the totalitarian Japanese government. Totalitarian. Okay, Shaun. We both have seen this film, but rewatching it again, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I really enjoy Battle Royale. I thought I had a really good time with it. I mean, it's weird because I feel like there's the immediate comparison to Hunger Games, and it always comes up in my head. And I think one of the things that makes this film so great, and I think it really is illustrated super well by everything, is how intensely real it feels. Like there are elements that feel like a little weird or a little cutesy, but overall, the idea of being thrown in this death pit catches everyone off. It's so intense in terms of like, holy fuck, what the fuck am I doing? What the fuck am I doing? And you really get that sense of things. Like people that have never killed before being thrown into a real Lord of the Flies, death match. So the illustration of that I thought was super, super interesting, and I don't even think Hunger Games really captures that sense of like, that falling into a pit sense of like, holy shit, now all the bars are off. I just got to survive. And I think this film executes that really well. Like people try to keep their sanity, but people lose their sanity. The meaningless or meaningfulness of it all, I thought was super intense, a lot of fun, depressing at times, sad, but exhilarating ultimately.
Avid book readers have read it. It's a classic read in many different languages. Fuck Hunger Games. I mean, Jesus Christ. First of all, they have fancy ass weapons. They train.
Yeah.
For the thing, right? Like
yeah.
They train. Like there's no training in this.
Yeah.
When the shootout happens, it's total chaos,
yeah.
right? And then you go into the aspects of just being a kid, and then the politics and the social happenings of things, especially the girls and the classmates and the cliques. That's what's so traumatizing in this movie, and the sadism, and just the sheer kind of the violence of it, not just in the gore aspect, but they are true kids. They're like junior high kids just fighting to the death, and not in the all-knowing sense of I have to do this. There's no logic in it, right? It's absolute, just like I'm just doing this and everybody's scared and it's just gonna happen. Comparing it to Stalker, this is the exact opposite of that film. This, in the same way, typical Japanese way of, it really happens. They're gonna talk about it, they're gonna allude to it, and you're like, yeah, right, it's not really gonna happen, but it is gonna happen. So, and the ideas are solid. What they talk about and what they believe in ends either succeeding or failing. Either that idea lives or dies in the same way as the characters do.
Overall, I think it is really fun. I feel like if there was one sort of lacking element, is that they introduce these really heavy topics and really invested things in terms of like, the young generation being like this fucked up generation, and then the old generation, blaming them for their sins. I feel like they could have gone a little bit more into depth with that. I mean, I feel like they do, but not. But
not in the movie, because
not in the movie.
They couldn't fit that.
They couldn't fit, but there could have been a little bit more of an emotional look to it that may have completed out the film. Especially like the main character's sort of story arc, it sort of devolves into this like, I love you and will do anything to love, survive, love type of thing, you know, with the main character and the girl he's sort of into, which is fine. I think it's fine. I think it's fun, and I think it has some meditative issues, but it scratches the surface rather than delving deep into it. Now, I don't know if you necessarily have to do that, but if that's the one fault I would find with the film is that it doesn't lack the depth of the issues that it brings up.
It's funny he says that because I feel the same way. I guess it's a typical Japanese kind of story arc where the main characters are not really what you like. Like even, you know, you see this in manga, anime. You don't really like the main characters. You like the side characters more. Yeah. In this movie, it's the same way. I didn't really care for the main characters. I mean, they're there to drive the narrative forward, but I'm like, fuck off. I like the side characters so much more. The supporting characters really, really make this film. Yeah. Anyway.
So those are our reviews of Stalker and Battle Royale. Next up, we're going to figure out which one we liked more.
All right. You first.
Okay. So the film I ended up choosing was Battle Royale. I went lowbrow. Even though I feel like I could pull more out of Stalker, I think there is, I probably will try to revisit it another time to see if I can glean more from the film. I think the contemplative, slow, drawn out aspects of it can lead to rewards on multiple viewings. And I think I did get some enjoyment, some deep sort of investment in the film, but ultimately, I felt like there was some sort of reward or some sort of like, you know, I need a little bit of cheese or I need a little bit of oomph or something to like really get me invested. And I feel like I didn't get that. The more, like I need maybe a little bit more pop, I guess. I don't know, whatever you want to call like the blockbuster side of things. I needed a little bit more pop or something to really catch me off my rocker. And I just didn't feel like that Stalker provided that enough. Battle Royale is a very watchable, enjoyable film that introduces complex, interesting themes. It might not catch on it as you know as well as it could, but it does do it in a very sort of pleasing, fun, involved manner. And I had a lot of good time with Battle Royale, and I could watch it again and again and have a good time with it. Ron?
Yeah, same thing. Battle Royale. I mean, Tarkovsky's got other better films, I'm sure. It's just maybe Stalker was kind of like one of those films that it's too self-indulgent. Nonetheless, it is in the history of filmmaking. Again, if you are looking for something innovative and you are just starting out, it's a good film to watch. You'll learn a lot. Very unconventional in terms of filmmaking. But, like I said, Battle Royale, truly a classic. It's a shame that people know Hunger Games more. Fuck the young adult. Fuck your YA shit. Stop that. Stop that, please. That's, we should protest against that. Anyway, those are our thoughts in this week's films.
So be sure to tune in next time with us when we try to find out who was right.
Shaun or Roun. See you guys.